I welcome Arpita Gupta ma'am for this podcast. This is a podcast where I try to demystify what is data science and everything about what a data scientist should be in this podcast. She is a data scientist at Accenture now. She was formerly an master student in BITS Pilani, and now I'm doing a podcast with her in order to demystify what a data scientist should be in order to be have the behavior of what a data scientist in the world has to behave. And also there are a lot of ways in which we are also discussing about how to begin data science as your career and also how to start learning for it. So and now she is also a founder of Let the Code Confess. So now it means a lot. You actually are listening to a person who has built something from scratch only as a person, and now I'm proud to do a podcast with her. Thank you so much for this podcast, ma'am.
Thank you, Vishwas, for inviting me. Such a great podcast. I will be sharing my views, and also it will be nice pleasure for me to discuss everything with you, so that okay, many people will learn with us that how to begin their career and journey in data science. So yeah, it will be a great session for me as well. So yeah, let's begin now.
Yes, ma'am. Let me just start with a question. Are living entities and computer interaction
Yeah.
just a simulation? What do you feel about the present way in which the computing world has been moving towards?
Vishwas, you are on. Yeah. So, yeah, as your first question, that how the living entities and computer interaction is going on, right? It's just a simulation or no. So, first we need to understand actually what is the simulation and why are we using this term basically. So, I would say if we are building something or we are designing something, we first make the prototype of something that we can visualize it to the computer, right? So, simulation is basically important when we are just prototyping something, but it's not the whole thing. When we are making something, we are designing something, we first make the simulation on the computer so that it's easy to visualize. And then after that, we can make it in the real time. So, if you are saying, talking about the computer interaction, human interaction, so yeah, it will be right now in this simulation phase only, but in future it will be in real time. It's like we are interacting with the computer as we are talking with each other, right? So it will expand definitely. So yeah, it but yeah, it will take time definitely.
You have worked on a lot and lot of technologies like deep learning, data science, computer vision. There are a lot and lot of aspects in which technology has given out challenges for us. But like, I just want to ask you this one question, which is that one best and fascinating technology that you have worked on?
Yeah, actually have done few projects on the deep learning, computer vision related tasks like object detection and all these things, and few tasks I have done in NLP as well, that I got opportunity to work on in Accenture in my company. So I would say NLP that fascinated the most because this is the domain when I can say like how we humans are different from the animals, right? If you think in that perspective, I would say because we have the gossiping power, because we know the language, we understand, we know how to describe it, we know like what's the inference we can take it out from it, right? So for these challenges, we need to take the help of natural language processing because there are lots of things that we need to still research on. It's like if I'm saying that someone is saying complimenting to you or someone else, right? And how would you know it's if it might be sarcasm because they are maybe possible that they are using good words, right? So it's really difficult for everyone that to understand the language, to interpret them, to analyze them basically. And if we are able to achieve that level of accuracy, or I can say that level of understanding, to know our language, how we are interacting with each other, then it will be a great help for the society as well. So yeah, this field fascinates me a lot because lots of research options are available in this field.
Yeah, you have also been seeing how the technology has been rolling in and out. The form factor of the technology is something which is more crazy today because when you see an iPhone today is not the iPhone that we had yesterday. It's the simple improvement that is actually changing. I just want to ask you this one question. What's the form factor of the technology tomorrow?
Yeah, actually, this for this also, like, what is, if you say form factor of technology, it means what technology we are using, right? So in, if I say it in terms of AI, right, then in AI there will be the great, I can say, analysis, or that great advancement will be in the form of human interaction with the machines, because right now whatever mostly machines we have, they are doing the particular task, or I can say a very specific task. If you check the AlphaGo computer or anything, so they are like, they are not designed to do everything. So the form factor of the technology, if I would say, it will be artificial general intelligence, when we will be able to make such machines when they are just like a mimic of a human, when whatever task we are doing, they will be able to do it. So that will change the complete technology as well, because maybe possible, if we are able to make such machines, then these machines will themselves evolve in such a way that they can advance the technology in a new level, right? So yeah, that will be a very I can say important factor when it's developed. Right now it's in the research phase, a lot of research is going on, but yeah, it will take time, for few years maybe, so that it can be take place in the real time.
Yeah, when approaching problem statement, it's a new big deal. Whether it's in the research, whether it's in the job which we are actually doing. Now, I just wanted to ask you this one question: how to approach a problem statement in order to give an optimal solution for it.
Yeah, actually, you have asked the right question. This is the basic thing that person should know, that how to approach a problem. Because if you are not able to understand that how you are doing, what people generally do, even in data science problems. Okay, this problem came, then they search few solutions on the Google. Okay, this person has done it in this way, and then they reply them, or they build the solution on the top of that. But this is not the right methodology that I think. I think we first need to understand the problem statement, what they actually want, what is the use of this problem, and what is the actual problem, I can say, and how I can solve it using the parameters given. Like, because definitely, if a problem statement is given, there will be some features, I can say, there will be some factors on which that problem will be dependent, right? So we need to first understand that problem. Once it's understood, then we can think of other factors, like, okay, I understand the problem, I need this amount of data, or maybe these factors or features I need. Once this is decided, then we can proceed ahead with the different algorithms or whatever solutions we have to design. So yeah, it's this is the right approach, that first understand the problem, then make the code or algorithm or whatever solutions you have, that you can apply after that. So yeah.
I just wanted to ask you this one thing because you focused on code and the algorithm, right? Which is the key,
Hmm.
whether it's the code or the
Yes.
algorithm, because everybody is behind code
I,
today because some or the other compiler or interpreter is
right.
like for sure if they learn, they're getting job. Fine. And now I just want to ask you this, which is the actual thing which they need to focus on in order to achieve an optimal solution for any problem statement?
Actually, there is no confusion on this. It's a simple answer to this question is just algorithm. Because code is what? Code is just a way how we are writing the algorithm. If you know how to write an algorithm, you can definitely code it. Let's take an example. If you are just writing a simple Python program, for suppose, of writing a Fibonacci series, that is the very most common question asked, right? And now you want to code it, but how it works, right? How the next number is populated. So in that case, what will you do even if you write the code, right? If you don't know the algorithm, so first you need to understand the algorithm. Then algorithm, I can say that if you know the algorithm, code is just a language to represent the algorithm. That's all. Like, it's like once it's you understood the algorithm, you can definitely code it. And if you are not able to code it, I can say that you didn't understand the algorithm also. This was the first thing that we have taught. during our college time and all.
Yeah, no. Speaking of code and algorithm is fine, but what about the documentation? What makes it special? There are plenty of documentations available today. Every framework has its own documentation. What makes a documentation special? Because you have worked in a lot of field now, and I just wanted to ask you this one question of what makes that documentation special.
Yeah, actually, documentation is, I can say it's a very important thing when you are doing some code or you are working on some problem. If you are not able to, like for suppose you are working on some problem currently, and after that, after few days, if you come back to that code, you won't be even and remember that what were you doing. So for now, just imagine about that user that who has no idea about anything what you have done, and for suppose they are using it, first of all documentation is needed for them because they want to understand what it is. No matter how well, I can say how well you write, or maybe the problem statement is simple, or maybe you have built the best solution, but if you are not telling them properly what it does, how it does, then there is no use. Again, it's important for developers as well. For suppose you are working on something and you left after that, and now some other developer comes and they want to build their code or their algorithm on the top of it. How will they understand what the hell have you done? It's really difficult to understand, right? So for them, documentation is important. Now the question from how to write the documentation, I would suggest that, I know it's a like very I can say if no one wants to do it, it's like okay, we feel lazy about it, but it's really important that okay, we are doing today's code, then write the documentation or write what you have done, so you will have the you will keep the track of it, what you actually have done. So yeah, that documentation is very important thing that which is actually underrated, I can say.
Which is the best documentation that you have studied? Like, I've gone through in order to solve a problem. It can be any framework, it can be any projects, or it can be anything. But you can also admire the person who has written the documentation also.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I would remember like the time when I was doing the internship. So I was working on a deep learning problem. So there we had used a respect algorithm. And you won't believe that the GitHub file has 40 code files in that GitHub repository had 40 files, and and all the functions are intermingled. It's like if you click on one function, it will lead you to another file, the another to the next one. So it was so mixed up. So but the only way to read it, like how they have done, was the documentation, and they have written it very properly that I could read everything, okay, understand everything, whatever. Like I can say, I have worked on it about 2 months, that how to understand everything and all, and to implement it in my own way. But yeah, I was able to understand just with the help of documentation. So I would feel that was the best documentation I have ever read, that how to do and everything.
I just wanted to ask you this one question. Will research be unique in India one day? That's my question to
Yeah,
you.
actually, I would say research is still unique in India, but there are few problems here. Like we are the people who do not get enough funding, so right. So we generally sometimes we either we just modify our research in such a way that it doesn't require much funding, or one more thing is we generally uh, we try to solve those problems that other countries are trying to solve. So, but the thing is, India has different problems, right? In the general routine, if I'm saying India has different problem, other countries have different problem. Maybe here the electricity problem, water problem is more crucial as compared to other problem that about the space, if I say, right? So once the people will understand these things, now India research in India will definitely unique. Then it will solve more much better problem, and also it depends on the funding. If we are good enough to provide good infrastructure, good resources, research option in India, then definitely I feel no that Indians have more intelligence as compared to other countries people. So yeah, it's just need, it's all about the opportunity, how we get it and when we get it.
Yeah, looking for the opportunity is a big thing, but
Mm.
when you get the opportunities, there are everything called as first time. everything will be like a first time to you. Even if you have been the best of the best outside of the work, when you go to the work, it's a first time to you. What were the constraints that you faced during your first day of the work, or else your first project when you were building, and how is it different from today? And has that experience really given that edge to solve more problems today?
Actually, you have raised a very interesting, you have asked a very interesting question, I would say. Where it was the first day of my internship when I went there, and my manager told me that, okay, Arpita, you have to do these, you have to work on these algorithms that were something related to Google Inception Network and all. And at that time, I was not very much aware of these algorithms. It was just I have a basic idea. And then she said, okay, you have to build a model, start your session and start working on AWS. And I was like, what? I have no clue about it. Okay. And then she explained me everything and all these things. And that the problem was at that time when I started working, there was not much resources available. There was like, okay, very few resources available, not much documentation. So that thing, I like, that was the biggest problem, because now we are dependent on the other person who knows the thing, who can help. It's not like we are just googling right now what we do. And second problem I faced problem in writing the script. I was not so I would say I was not so expert in writing Python script. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I would prefer to do manual things rather than to create a automatical doing script, I would say. So yeah, I would say कि my mentor forced me to do that thing. Okay, no, Arpita, you have to complete it anyhow, anyway. So with that, I started doing everything by manual. So, but yeah, the things are now very different because now we have more resources, better techniques available, and of course, it's like with the experience, we learn a lot of things. So now we don't face such issues that I had faced at that time. Even there was a time when during my MTech, I faced issues in installing TensorFlow with the CUDA, and I spent 2-3 months. And the biggest challenge I faced was 1 month I took to realize that my computer won't be compatible with the TensorFlow because it doesn't work with the 32-bit system. So yeah, these are the challenges that I faced because that time Google TensorFlow was just released, so there was not much documentation was possible. So yeah, but now I think everything has been changed a lot. Every solution is possible. You just need to do the Google search. That's all.
When you told about 32-bit not being compatible for the TensorFlow, that's actually pretty cool because, not every person actually gets to know that because, some or the other way, we will never be knowing what's our actual role in the technology also and how we are supposed to approach the problem statements. Now, my question is, has the game of technology really changed as soon as the TensorFlow was open sourced? And I just want you to give what was the situation when there was no TensorFlow.
Okay. Okay, actually, TensorFlow has changed everything when it's open source. Now, imagine now developers are free to realize that what they are building inside their model. If, for suppose, if I'm neural network is always known as a black box, right? So if you are not even aware that what you are doing, you don't know the functions they have designed in their library, what they are doing and how to build them. So by making them open source, now you everything is open for you. If you want, you can change them, you can build everything from the scratch. And if I say what was there when TensorFlow was not there, right? So it was like we had to use different libraries. Even I had used Theano and Cafe, those libraries that were very famous at that time. And yeah, it was not possible to realize everything. I can say the TensorBoard has made the visualization very simple and like clear now. That was not possible before. It was like, okay, you have to imagine everything in your mind. If you are able to do this, you are good. Otherwise you will face lots of problem that what's happening inside the network. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge at that time.
Yeah, when there was nothing called as TensorFlow, everybody has faced that. I have already asked that to a lot of people, but you know, there are ways in which software development has come into a lot of ways. There are there are new disruptions, new architectures coming up every given point of time. I just want to ask you this one question: is experience in solving problem good enough to just give an optimal solution for tomorrow's new problem statement? What's your view on it?
I would say it's like it's not just enough. I would say it's mandatory. It's important. Okay, we should know how to solve a problem first. Then only we can apply the machine learning algorithm. But if we are saying that it's enough, I don't think, because there are many technological tools that are necessary. Even once you understand the problem, then you should know how to apply them, and you should know what tools may be helpful for you that can help to build the solution for this. So yeah, it's not enough, but it's mandatory.
I just wanted to ask you this one question: how has machine learning changed the compute and their benchmarks?
Actually, I would say if you would ask me this question in this way, that how deep learning has changed the computers, then I would say it has changed everything. Even if there are many, if I am talking, I'll talk about the computer architecture and these hardware related things. There are many chips are being designed which have implemented in that, and also, if you like, best example is given when you are talking about the supercomputer or these things. They have changed just because now we have more computing power. Now we are, like, I can say, we are able to develop such algorithms that can make our computer not just faster, but we are giving the ability to them so that they can decide what actually have to do. Otherwise, computer was always known as a machine that will always do what you were given or what you have told to them, that okay, this has to be done. Now they have the ability to think by themselves, or maybe if it's not full fledged, I can say in few years it will be, when we don't need to give instruction to computer, okay, do this thing or do that thing.
Are we adamant to the potentials of the algorithm, or what is it? People have taken lot and lot of time to implement one algorithm and get the results, but they work on other algorithms too. But like, I just want to ask your view on: are we really adamant to the potential of what an algorithm is?
Yeah, I think I can say, okay, yeah, we are bit adamant, but it has to be. Otherwise, for suppose if you are implementing some algorithm and it's not giving you proper result or not working well, in that case, how will you judge? Maybe possible that by trying some efforts or maybe some few modifications, you will be able to achieve good results. So maybe it's not the problem with the algorithm. It may be you might have the problem with the data, right? So yeah, we are bit adamant in this, and we have to, because if you take the example of Faith Elise, who is the director of Facebook, I think. So she was the only person 10 years or 20 years back who believed that algorithm or the whatever uh, machine learning or deep learning tools we are using, that are good enough. The only thing we need to improve was the data, and she worked on it for 10 years to just to make herself, I can say, she proved herself that yeah, she was right. Now everything is everyone has focused on the data, not just on algorithm. So that algorithms that they were using before, that are still working now. So yeah, we need to give some more time to implement that algorithm, how they are working. So that only
Yeah.
will decide if we are good.
Hey, when you told about data from the director of the Facebook, what her fallacies were and what her theories were actually saying, and how she really proved to the world that this is the thing. I just want to ask you this one question: is really frameworks and deep learning or machine learning just hungry for learning, or else what is it all about with these frameworks? Everybody has this one thing where, LinkedIn mein jao, or just go and click on to something and it's like, okay, I just want some view on this, I just want some view on that. And people are really more fascinated about what is not. I just want to ask you this one question: what is this funda of learning frameworks all about? Are they really good enough to just get me a job tomorrow? What is that all about?
Okay. So I understood your problem. Yeah, right now everyone is using different frameworks, and either they are doing the comparison on that. Okay, which one is better? Which one I should use? And the people who are just newer or getting more confused that which one we should use, or from where to we should start, right? So I would suggest that just take one framework, okay, and then start working on it. If even if it's bad, no, or if it's not fulfilling your job, then you will realize, okay, this is the shortcoming that I found here, and that can be fulfilled by other framework. So now you will know that, okay, if you are using some other framework, then why, and if you are losing the, or you are not using that particular framework, then why. And also while doing this complete thing, you will understand how to use that particular framework as well. So now you will have understanding and in-depth knowledge of one framework, and also you will now, oh, if you will switch to another one, there will be definitely some similarities there. It's just the problems that they faced in one framework that will be resolved in another. So you will have understanding of everything. And if I say it's all about the job, will I get the job to learn a framework? I won't say, it's just support. That if you, okay, you know the framework, now you can help them, help the company to build their solution using that framework, because the company is using the particular framework. But it depends. Maybe possible that some company is using one framework, another one is using something else. So yeah, it's depends on the luck that if you get the job with the using the particular framework or not. But yeah, it definitely increase your knowledge as well.
No, I just wanted to ask you this one question where you have also been a master student in embedded system, right? Let's just not waste that knowledge up. Let's just use it up also. No, well, probability and the theory of probabilities in machine learning systems give rise to a unique instruction set tomorrow. Because when you see machine learning, deep learning, AI, or anything, it's all based on the probability and all these. Well, this influence in giving us the new instruction set, the way of compute which has to be changed. And what's your view on the present instruction sets also? I just want your view on all these.
Yeah, I understood. Actually, I would say that in my opinion, yeah, it will definitely change, because the probability is something that I'm saying data science is based on. Everything is probable in this world of data science. So if right now the whatever instruction sets are already there, if they are fixed kind of, they are okay, they are designed in such a way that we they are used to do a fixed particular task. It's not so much possibility that they can provide to us. But yeah, if this probability can make the instruction set better in such a way that it can do various tasks, then definitely it will be the changing thing for technology and also computers as well.
When you told about building AGI, it's far, but yes. According to you, if the AGI gets built, what are all the questions which it can? It's going to be a reality. The AGI is going to be a reality one day. But now, if the AGI gets built, according to you, what's the question that it can
So
ask?
I would say, okay, if AGI is built, then I would say that it will be able to answer everything. Like, what does it mean by AGI? I'm saying if AGI is able to perform like humans does, right? So whatever humans are doing, if it will definitely to do the same task, right? So of course, I would say, if I'm asking that the person, okay, I would say, let's take an example of NLP. I'm saying I am able to detect a person's sarcasm, humor as well, right? So I can do it easily, but machines are not able to do right now. But yeah, if I'm able to incorporate AGI in the machines, it will definitely able to detect those things as well. So I would say it will be very beneficial for humans as well, because it will give a new age to the technology.
Thank you so much for this amazing podcast, ma'am. You have answered all the questions in a very short span of time, and I think probably the one of the shortest interviews that I ever conducted. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vishwas, for inviting me and sharing such amazing questions with me. So yeah, I hope it will be helpful for everyone. who are like starting their career and have such doubts. So you have done amazing job like to asking these questions which are very relevant to the people who are just entering in this field, because everyone wants to know these answers and sometimes they don't get enough, right? So it's like you are really doing the good job. Thank you so much for inviting me.